Princess Leia was right. The tighter the Empire grips, the more planets will slip through its fingers. Stocks are sliding, cryptocurrency is holding, and the elites are getting frantic. More after the drop. How's the Great Awakening treating you? Hey, it's your lovable pal Nate Houseman, and we're going to look at some of the top stories on the internet and do some pointing and laughing. We're going to look at the markets, first of all, and we're going to look at some frantic missteps by the corporate media and big tech. We're going to look at some very important court cases, and we're going to wrap it up with some more laughing, pointing and laughing at the media. So if you like what you hear, if you find this content valuable, please subscribe to the channel, whether you're on YouTube, Odyssey, or listening to the podcast, and share it with your friends and family. Okay, let's get started. Oh, and if you want to support the channel and support yourselves, click on the Linktree link in the description, and you'll find affiliate links to some really helpful resources. You can it's going to be very important to convert your fiat money into gold and silver and Bitcoin, and I also have I also sell T-shirts and hats, and I also sell some white label web design and digital marketing services. So if you want to fire your boss and start your own business, it's very important that you have a website, and my little shop there will get you started. So let's get to it. We're going to start with the markets today. It says everything is green on CNBC, but it says, where was it? Oh, where was it? Oh, the page updated. But stocks are making the biggest moves after hours. Salesforce, let's see here. Salesforce, Box, HP Enterprise, and Ambarella, they've gone up. But a lot of stocks have gone down today. Especially corporate media stocks and tech stocks. The Dow drops 650 points on Tuesday on growing Omicron fears and Powell taper comments. So Jerome Powell, the boss at the Federal Reserve, USA Central Bank, he pretty much admitted what most of us have suspected, that inflation is not temporary or transitory. And is the market really reacting to that? Let's read what CNBC says. Stocks tumbled Tuesday, reversing Monday's rebound on Wall Street as investors reassessed risks associated with the new COVID variant over Omicron. Major averages dropped to their session lows after Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell said the central bank will discuss speeding up the bond buying taper at its December meeting. The Dow Jones Industrial Average dropped 652 points to 34,483, dragged down by losses in American Express and Salesforce. That was earlier in the day. The S&P 500 shed 1.9%, and technology-heavy NASDAQ dipped 1%, 1.6%, and the small-cap benchmark Russell 2000 dropped 1.9%. So that's those are pretty big dips when you're considering the stock market. If you invest in cryptocurrency, this is like barely worth mentioning. At this point, the economy is very strong and inflationary pressures are higher, and is therefore appropriate, in my view, to consider wrapping up the taper of our asset purchases, perhaps a few months sooner, Powell said, and I expect that we will discuss that at our upcoming meeting. Powell's comments suggest that the Fed's focus has now changed to fighting inflation and its negative impacts rather than any more potential disruptions in economic activity from new variants of COVID. Now, is COVID really the threat the powers that be are making out to be? Well, we're going to talk about a court case and some of the actions that the government took after that a little bit later. Jussie Smollett. kind of as an example of what the government does to enact change. Let's see here. The stocks move lower follows a volatile last few sessions as investors evaluate the Omicron impact. The Dow lost 905 points Friday, then rebounded by 237 points Monday. Major averages rose to session highs Monday after so-called President Joe Biden said economic lockdowns are currently off the table, and there will be no new travel restrictions. So that's probably the big thing. Not the virus itself, but the government's reaction to it. All these world governments are locking down the borders, restricting travel, and restricting trade for something that we've dealt with for plagues that is nothing new in world history. So let's see here. Why Apple was the only tech stock that went up on Tuesday. So most stocks, the stock market went down. Apple was the only tech stock that went up because the company has prodigious cash flow. You know, Apple has the App Store, and I've heard from certain gaming like YouTubers that Apple makes more money on gaming than probably Xbox, PlayStation, and Nintendo combined. Basically, they take a cut out of all the mobile games, all the mobile gaming, revenue, and they take revenue from all the other apps in the App Store. And I'm sure Google does too, but well, look at why Google has slipped. Apple stock closed up 3.1% on Tuesday after other stocks tumbled on concerns of the new Omicron COVID variant, showing investors see the company as a safe haven during market uncertainty. Other large cap tech stocks like Google, Amazon, Meta, formerly Facebook, and Microsoft closed down for the day amid a broader market sell-off. The Dow Jones Industrial Average dropped 651 points, as we said, and the tech-heavy Nasdaq fell 1.6%. There's a flight to quality with companies that will weather the storm, not go bankrupt, and not have financial distress, Martin said. Noting that other large cap tech stocks aren't down as much as smaller firms. So, Amazon, I'm not sure they're really so much a tech company as a logistics company. Like they have such a huge, delivery, warehouse, shipping operation, and the Amazon website is just like their portal to buying all the products they sell. Meta and Google, they're probably under fire from the big tech antitrust, movements that are like, because they're clamping down on free speech, same as Twitter, which we'll get to. Apple has mostly been a computer device, hardware and software company, and Apple uses its cash flow not only to invest in new products, but to return capital to shareholders through dividends and buybacks. So, Apple is also known as a kind of a luxury brand. They're priced so high, people think, oh, they must be super valuable and durable. And I had a MacBook for 6 years, and I just retired it in July because it finally died out. I'm streaming this on a PC, and it's a lot more affordable. It's a lot more durable. It's a lot better value for the money. It's like psychology. All right, so let's look at some of the media stocks today, because we do want to talk about entertainment and media and how that affects the culture. Viacom CBS. I want to mention this because I watched a video by Doomcock, Overlord DVD, just ripping Star Trek Discovery, that bastardization of a great legendary property, and what it's doing to CBS. And let's see here, the stock is down. It's inching a little bit, but it's been just sliding down over the last 6 months. Really, since March, it's just nosedived. Let's look at some of the other big corporate media giants. Disney is down today. Let's look at it over time. While that's loading, we'll open up Comcast. Comcast is down today. What's it been like over 6 months? Let's go back to Disney. I have so many tabs open, it's probably why things are going slow here. Okay. Disney was going steady up until November 8th, and just nosedive. I think that was around the time of their Disney shareholders meeting, and they must not have had some good news. Well, let's look at Comcast over time. And I apologize for the slow reaction here. Okay, Comcast is down. Comcast is also NBC and Universal Studios. Comcast has been sliding down since September. Let's look at AT&T. AT&T used to be the parent company of Warner Media and CNN, but I think they're still in the process of selling that to Discovery. And we'll look at Discovery a little bit. I know AT&T has been billions in debt for a few years now, and they have to like shed a bunch of assets. I know Disney's also in deep debt because they just splurged so much on Fox, 20th Century Fox. Yep, AT&T has been steadily sliding down over the last 6 months. Let's look at Discovery. Yeah, they're down. They kind of did a little slide and slight upturn today, but they're down overall. Let's look at the 6-month trend. As soon as the page loads, I truly apologize. Let's slow down. I just paid my internet bill today. While waiting for that, let's look at Netflix. They're down very steeply today. Let's look at the 6-month. Okay, Discovery has been zigzagging down for the last 6 months. It had a little boost this month and now dropped way down. I think November 11th. I think that might have been when they announced the sale to of them buying Warner Media from AT&T. Not just Warner Brothers, but also Ted Turner's former cable empire. That includes CNN, Cartoon Network, TNT, TBS, and so forth. Netflix is down today. Let's look at the 6-month trend. Oh, it's been going up. So that's interesting. You know, that kind of tells us a lot. You know, Netflix is the granddaddy of streaming services. So whatever, you know, they have some garbage content, they have some good content, but I think people are kind of committed to the streaming service. People are looking at the other streaming services like Disney Plus and HBO Max, which is Warner Brothers and HBO. They're looking at Paramount Plus. They're looking at other streaming services, and we'll get to that story. But old Hollywood is dying. Old media is dying. Everyone's going to the internet. The only way, you know, certain, you know, TV networks or cable news, you know, operations are going to survive is if they get online. You know, CNN has a huge audience on YouTube. That's probably because YouTube props it up. Same with MSNBC and Fox. I was just watching a segment by Tim Pool today, and that's what he says. You look at independent YouTubers, look at independent podcasters. They're growing. They're getting a lot of traffic, but YouTube is not supporting them in the algorithm. So you have to go, build your audience other ways, like either outside on other social media platforms. You got to maybe pay for traffic. You have to build up your podcast. But we're seeing how powers that be kind of have their favorites and they put their finger on the scale. So let's look at some of Viacom CBS's trouble. From Deadline, Viacom CBS to sell CBS Studio Center in LA for $1.85 billion to Hackman Capital. Viacom CBS continues to shed non-core assets, announcing Tuesday a definitive agreement to divest its iconic CBS Studio Center and associated businesses to the partnership of Hackman Capital Partners and Square Mile Capital Management for $1.85 billion. The deal, which was anticipated, was the result of a widely marketed sale process, which the company said attracted interest from a number of buyers in the Los Angeles studio lot. So the boom in streaming has created a global crunch of production space, and an array of real estate developers and financial firms have jumped in with Hackman, by far the biggest. The firm last week acquired Ward Park Film and Television Studios, one of the largest production facilities in Scotland. The week before, announced a deal with the City of Toronto to develop a new complex called Basin Media Studios. Okay, the sale helps Viacom CBS raise needed cash to plow into content creation. The logic behind its unloading various assets, including CBS's historic Black Rock headquarters in New York City for $760 million in August. It agreed to sell the publisher, Simon & Schuster, to Bertelsmann. Oh, I didn't know they owned Simon & Schuster. Okay, so Bertelsmann, which is the owner of Penguin Random House. So that's a merger in the publishing world. This sale is part of an ongoing optimization of Viacom CBS's real estate and operations portfolio and will allow the company to redeploy capital to strategic growth priorities, including streaming. Well, if they're going to sell a lot, where else are they going to film? Where else are they going to film content? CBS Viacom is just, the only reason I opened an account on Paramount Plus is just to see if they had classic episodes of The Price is Right, and they don't, so I canceled it before I was charged anything. And Pluto TV does have classic episodes from the Bob Barker era, but they're on a schedule, they're not on demand, so it's like, I can't find the episodes I want to see. So CBS has their thumbs up their tooties. And they're not the only ones struggling. This is from piratesandprincesses.net. This is Geeky Sparkle's blog. She's one half of Clownfish TV, which I'm a big fan of. They talk about Disney a lot. They talk about animation, cartoons, and theme parks. Disney terminates Blue Crab and Shadow the Dog at the Hilton Head Island Resort. So, Disney was hurt really bad by the lockdowns. I hesitate to call it COVID because it's, I'm not saying COVID is fake, but most of the cases were probably just the flu. Let's be real. But Disney relies heavily on their theme parks to kind of carry them through the lean times. Theme parks have been a very reliable moneymaker for the company, and it powered a lot of their, acquisitions over the last 10, 15 years. But the lockdown set them back terribly, and they had to, furlough and lay off a lot of their theme park and resort staff, such as this gentleman. There are right ways and wrong ways to do things. Lately has been showing us the way not to do things. This time in a way you can handle longtime cast members. And cast members is what they call their theme park employees. A lot of them are performers. According to 21-year Disney veteran Mick Ayers, He and his dog were fired from Disney's Hilton Head Island Resort after 20 months of being told they were coming back. All while Ayers claims he didn't violate his contract by working at other locations, while he took Disney at their word and waited. Now he's been terminated. So this gentleman, he's a musician, and he plays live music for the guests at the island resort. Not only that, they read him a Disney form letter in a 5-minute phone call. After all that time and loyalty, he got a blunt 5-minute phone call from an alleged friend just doing their job. Seems to me a friend wouldn't be so blunt, but hey. So, and this is the statement he put out. So many, the theme park workers, they are on another level of customer service. Like, I've had customer service jobs, and I've been so tempted to, read people the riot act for just the way they treat hardworking people. I've been to Disney World a couple times. My extended family and I are planning another trip next spring, and we're excited, but I'm going to try to teach my nephews, hey, treat the workers with respect. They work hard to make sure we have a good time. And, we were treated very well. Like, we were, the restaurant servers were nice. I had a little throw-up accident on the Flight of Passage ride in Animal Kingdom, and the girl who got me the towel to wipe up, she was so nice. I was apologizing, profusely because I made a mess, but she said, we're prepared for it, and they probably were prepared for it. They think of everything. They don't miss a trick, and the way the corporate, the way the executives in their ivory towers are treating the frontline workers where the rubber meets the road, it's just, it's just so out of touch. So it just kind of shows you that the elites are scrambling. Let's look at this here. Let's move on. Oh yes, video market streaming services. This is from Yahoo Finance. Is the market for streaming services cooling? Mark Douglas, CEO at MNTN, considers whether there might be room in consumer pocketbooks for yet another service, or if the streaming wars are shifting focus into exclusive content. So, they have a video here, and this is the transcript. Who's going to win the streaming wars? Let's bring in Mark Douglas. He says, cable, like in Los Angeles where I just live, cable is $180 a month. But putting that aside, the way to think about it is most households basically they want 3 streaming services. One of them, Netflix, is just locked in as one of them. They generally want some form of live sports, so Hulu or YouTube TV. They get that live programming, and number 3 is a rotation. So Netflix and Hulu and YouTube are set, and there's really not room for anyone else unless you have more than $180 to spend a month. It's the same. If you got all the streaming services together to get all the content you want, it's no better than the huge cable bills we used to struggle with. So it looks like Disney Plus, HBO Max, Paramount Plus, Peacock, they're all going to be scrambling for that third slot, and not everyone can own it. Now, Disney's going to be okay because they own like a controlling stake in Hulu, but how profitable is that for them? You've got, they're really going to have to rethink how they distribute their content and how they and just be a little more open about sharing it, because they've been trying to have exclusives. That's not going to really cut it anymore. And people are watching YouTube and getting a lot more content from regular, authentic people than the Hollywood glitz and glamour, the Hollywood fakery. So, and Hollywood productions just aren't what they used to be. You watch channels like Tonfish TV, you can watch channels like Overlord DVD, where Doomcock, you know, rants and raves. You watch Nerdrotic and Gary Beekler and his weekly panel on Friday Night's Heist. You watch Hero versus Babyface. You watch Geeks and Gamers. You watch, any one of these channels that fall into the Phantom Menace, category. And people understand that Hollywood and comic books and entertainment media is going to crap. Indies are where it's at. So I just want to share this little article because it's pertinent to a very tragic case. The Alec Baldwin shooting, a possible, we don't know, killing of Helena Hutchinson. Dolph Lundgren weighs in. Dolph Lundgren, who, Ivan Drago, He-Man, great, legendary action star. I've seen him in interviews, and he just seems like a stand-up guy compared to, a lot of the other celebrity, swell heads. Dolph Lundgren speaks on Alec Baldwin Rust shooting. It's a serious business having real firearms on a film set. Action star Dolph Lundgren, known for such roles as Ivan Drago in Rocky IV and King Nereus in Aquaman, recently weighed in on the Alec Baldwin shooting by asserting that firearms on movie sets are a serious business. It's a serious business having real firearms on a film set, Lundgren told Fox News, adding, usually an armorer, they're very serious people, and they're very committed, and the guns are checked. Any other time I remember it happening was with Brandon Lee, he recalled, referencing a similar on-set shooting of Brandon Lee during filming of The Crow. Warren, the son of the renowned martial artist Bruce Lee, was killed by an improperly crafted dummy round fired from a prop gun by his film co-star Michael Mass. It's crazy, Lundgren said, of Baldwin's fatal weapon discharge, which injured director Joel Souza and killed director of photography Helena Hutchins on the set of Rust. Lundgren continued, I don't know how that happened. There should never be any live ammo on a movie set, before explaining what he used to do by manipulating firearms on the set of any action films he started. I used to do a couple dry fires into the ground before I use it, the expendable starter explained. There's a protocol that is pretty strict, and I'm sure safety on sets is going to be even more strict now. So, I kind of wonder if this is just part of the ongoing trend that, Hollywood is losing its touch. They've got that. I'm not sure how the worker strike is going along. The set workers, the IATSE, but it's very possible that some of the armorers on the set of this movie were just, inexperienced replacements who didn't know what they were doing, who were kind of like still not as experienced or not as knowledgeable as the very professional, traditional, armorers who probably weren't being paid as so great. That's just another big scandal we're revealing this year. Just how corrupt Hollywood is, and how they treat their employees, and how standards are slipping. Moving on to a few other stocks. We talked about the Omicron variant. Let's look at some of the pharmaceutical manufacturers. Moderna is in the red right now, but let's look at 6 months as soon as the page loads up. Let's look at 1 month. Let's also look at Johnson & Johnson. They're down today. Let's look at the 1 month. And let's also look at Pfizer. Pfizer's up today because they're the golden child. Let's open up the 1 month chart, and we'll go back to Moderna. See if that's been updated. So Moderna's green. up over the month, but had a long dip through the month of November, just kind of like poked up on November 29th, just as they announced it would be an Omicron variant. So let's look at Johnson & Johnson. While waiting for that, we'll look at we'll look on the 1 month chart for Pfizer. Okay, Johnson & Johnson has been sliding over the month. They're down like 4.35% over the past month. And Pfizer is up 2.4% today. Over 1 month, it's up 23.12%. So Pfizer probably has, either has their act together or they have some really good lobbyists at the FDA. All right, let's look at Bitcoin and cryptocurrency because stocks have dipped today. Let's look at what the cryptocurrencies, the digital assets, have done. Bitcoin turns lower as Fed chair suggests inflation is no longer transitory. Oh, we mentioned that. Let's look at CoinDesk's take on it. Bitcoin turned lower along with U.S. stocks after Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell said Tuesday it may be time to retire the term transitory as a way of describing inflation. Over the past 7 months, Powell and other officials at the U.S. Central Bank have repeatedly used the term to suggest that the forces driving recent consumer price increases might abate as the economy accelerates from coronavirus-related lockdowns. So the shift in messaging by Powell during testimony before a U.S. Senate panel might signal that authorities now see the inflationary pressures as longer lasting, potentially indicating that the central bank might be less willing to continue to loosen monetary policies that have buoyed markets for risky assets, including cryptocurrencies. It is time to retire the word transitory regarding inflation. No kidding. It was time way back in March or February because who believes you? Powell said during the hearing before the Senate Banking Committee, Bitcoin's price slid to about $57,000 as of press time, down from about $58,500 before the hearing started. Bitcoin as inflation hedge, it's a risky asset. Bitcoin, just in general, is volatile, but if you zoom out the charts over time, it's always going up. It's just kind of like zigzags a little bit. Let's look at another article from CoinDesk. Maybe. Bitcoin underperforms as Ether and other cryptocurrency altcoins rise. Ether is up about 5% over the past 24 hours compared to Bitcoin's flat performance. So Bitcoin slightly went down, but other cryptocurrencies have held. So Bitcoin was roughly flat on Tuesday. Get out of there. While alternative cryptocurrencies such as Ether and Solana's Sol token up over about 5% over the past 24 hours. Luna, the native token of the Terra blockchain, rallied to about 13% as traders chased incentive programs. Overall, trading conditions were choppy across global markets after the U.S. Federal Reserve Chair suggested that monetary policy. Okay, we said that already. Despite short-term price swings, some analysts remain bullish on Bitcoin. Its prices. Bitcoin is down 1%. Ether is up 5.4%. The S&P 500 is down 1.5%. Gold is down 0.5%. And the 10-year Treasury yield closed at 1.436%. Bitcoin is looking good to close November below the expected target of 60,000. Investors are optimistic that the cryptocurrency will repeat its historic trend of ending the year on a stellar bullish note, said Nikita Rudenia, co-founder of the asset management firm 8848 Invest. He wrote that in an email to CoinDesk. Bitcoin dominance falls. Pretty much all cryptocurrencies are measured against Bitcoin. There's Bitcoin and the altcoins. And sometimes you might include Ethereum as like the other big cryptocurrency, but Bitcoin is the granddaddy. So this is not financial advice, but it might be a good idea. It might be to convert some of your fiat money into precious metals and crypto. And I do have links to companies, exchanges where you can do that. You can buy physical gold through Acre Gold. You can subscribe and get gold delivered to your address monthly. And you can also click on the link to Uphold and buy and trade cryptocurrency. So just throwing that out there. You don't have to do it. I'm just random schlub in his pajamas talking on the internet, but consider it. While we're at Coindesk.com, let's see what they have to say about Twitter's new boss. Because we're moving on to the big tech censorship affair issue. 5 things to know about Twitter's new CEO, Parag Agrawal. Agrawal is a so-called champion of Twitter's project to develop decentralized social media, the project's leader said. Now, do we trust that statement? Because Twitter has been terrible at free speech. They banned the sitting president of the United States. They banned the New York Post after they broke the Hunter Biden laptop story. They shadow banned, so many, conservative voices, and not just conservative, but classical liberals who might sincerely believe in some of the, traditional liberal, ideas, but they'll go in for the far left fakery psychoticness. Going back to Clownfish TV, they have called Twitter ground zero for cancel culture. Anyone who goes against the party line of Hollywood or the far left, they lose their livelihood or whatever, and it starts at the toxic environment of Twitter. So, what do they say about Parag here? He's leading force in Twitter's decentralization projects. Agrawal oversees Blue Sky, which I mentioned in the last episode. Twitter's project to create a decentralized protocol for social media was started in 2019, according to The Verge. The project didn't make noise until this year. In January, it released an ecosystem review of decentralized social media. In August, Agrawal tapped Jay Garber, a crypto developer who worked on Zcash, to lead the Blue Sky team. Garber said Agrawal has been a champion of the team from the start. The new CEO also led Twitter's brand new crypto team, according to The Verge. In September, Twitter launched tipping in currencies and verification of non-fungible tokens. Number 2, he led Twitter's migration to cloud servers. Twitter has been plagued by slow performance and difficulty in launching new features, in part because it ran all of its services and projects on its own servers. Agrawal compared Twitter's tech to a ball of hair in a 2020 interview with The Information, a phrase he borrowed from Nick Torno, the platform lead of the company. As the chief technical officer, Agrawal spearheaded the platform's migration to cloud servers. In 2018, Twitter migrated cold data storage. Okay. Number 3, he is concerned about the ethics of tech. And this is what should concern a lot of us. In 2018, Agrawal has been part of the effort to determine whether Twitter's image cropping algorithm was racially discriminatory. During his tenure as CTO, the company launched in April a responsible machine learning initiative. Agrawal explained his thoughts on Twitter's responsibility for content moderation in an interview with MIT Technology Review, saying the company's approach is rooted to avoid specific harm that misleading information can cause. So, he's against misinformation. And how many of us know what that's code for? Number 4, he has risen quickly up Twitter's ranks. Agrawal started working at the company as an engineer in 2011 and became CTO in 2017. who was Twitter's first distinguished engineer thanks to his work on revenue and consumer engineering, according to his bio on Twitter's corporate website. Number 5, he doesn't tweet much. Agarwal is not a big tweeter. His timeline is filled mainly with retweets and comments on company policy. So, let's look at some more Parag Agarwal news. Twitter bans sharing photos, video of people without their consent. This is from CNET.com. The social media site may allow images if they're newsworthy, but says it'll try to assess the content. So, newsworthy, so what's newsworthy? Who decides that? In an upcoming episode, I'm going to make the case that everyone is a journalist, not just the people working for media companies. I'm a journalist. You're a journalist. Anyone with an internet connection is a journalist. That's what the Founding Fathers wanted when they wrote the First Amendment. Twitter on Tuesday banned the sharing of photos and videos of private individuals without their consent, the company said in a blog post. The update to its private information policy notes that people can contact the microblogging platform and have such media removed. The ban doesn't apply to public figures if the media and tweet are of public interest. The content featuring those people may be removed if the site's guide determines it's been shared to harass, intimidate, or use fear to silence them. We will always try to assess the context in which the content is shared, and in such cases, we may allow the images or videos to remain on the service. So, they banned Donald Trump on January 6th because he urged his supporters to go home, go in peace, we love you. And if you didn't know that, you're probably watching the wrong media. I saw the video. He said that. But Twitter also allows, posts by ISIS, posts by Antifa members who discuss burning and looting. So, what do they determine is harassment? What do they determine is violent content? You see how subjective that is? They're going to have a big First Amendment problem, especially since we know that a lot of these big tech companies have support from the government, whether federal or state. I've talked about that before. The move is an expansion of Twitter's private information policy, and that the company says is meant to protect people from physical or emotional harm. Policy already bars Twitter users from sharing people's home addresses, government IDs, and other sensitive information. Okay, it's good. You shouldn't have to. People shouldn't be doxxed. People should be able to be secure in their on their persons and papers and effects and property. That's protected by the Fourth Amendment of the Constitution, and that's what the government says. And if big tech is an extension of the government, then you follow that. Let's move on to reclaimthenet.org because they'll always be straight with you. Twitter's new CEO, Parag Agarwal, previously rejected free speech in favor of healthy public conversation. He also wished the company had censored some content sooner. So, in a far-reaching November 2020 interview, Twitter's new CEO, Parag Agarwal, who was the company's chief technology officer at the time, rejected free speech protections that are enshrined in the First Amendment of the U.S. Constitution, wished the company had censored QAnon sooner, and touted the company's approach of censoring content based on potential for harm. Our role is not to be bound by the First Amendment, but our role is to serve a healthy public conversation, and our moves are reflective of things that we believe lead to a healthier public conversation. A healthy public conversation is when rules are applied evenly across the board, and not, biased towards one position or another. He added that the company now focuses less on thinking about free speech, but thinking about how the times have changed. In this context, Agarwal said the role of Twitter is increasingly moving towards recommendations and how we direct people's attention is leading to a healthy public conversation that is most participatory. Agarwal also noted that Twitter focuses its censorship efforts on avoiding specific harm that misleading information can cause, and claimed that when it comes to COVID-19, a few people being misinformed can lead to implications on everyone. Well, okay, I wish you'd apply that logic to CNN. Additionally, Agarwal addressed Twitter censorship of QAnon in July of 2020 by wishing QAnon content had been purged from the platform earlier, and touting Twitter's actions that had led to very rapid decrease in the information amount of reach QAnon and related content got on the platform by over 50%. Now, QAnon, I don't even know where Q posts, what website he, she, or they post to. I do follow the X22 report, and the host, Dave, he analyzes Q. There's no such thing as QAnon. There's Q, and then there are the Anons who like ask Q questions. Talking about QAnon is just like, I'm trying to think of the word. It's more like a kind of its own little bit of disinformation. Let's see here. But how do you handle free speech? What is free speech? What is safe speech? There's no such thing as... The way you deal with misinformation is you tell the truth. And you back up the truth with evidence. You know, on the internet we talk about showing receipts. We show, we show pictures. We show past emails. One reason Tim Pool is so effective on his YouTube channel is he kind of grew up in skateboard culture. They would always do tricks and brag about what they did, and there's kind of a saying, pics or it didn't happen. So they are very diligent about documenting all the tricks they perform, and that kind of trained him to think, hey, don't back up what you're saying unless you have proof. Now, I am sharing opinions, and I'm very open about telling you these are opinions, but I want you to make your own decisions. And the way you do that is not by clamping down on speech that you think is misleading. You counter it with good speech. You counter it with true speech. So I'm a free speech maximalist. I believe that everyone should be able to say what they want, but also have be responsible enough to either vet the sources or have the principles to use logic and facts. What's next here? Twitter stock down today. Let's look at the 1 month chart. Hopefully. Twitter is down 4.02 points a day. Let's see here, 5-day. I know it went up yesterday on the news that Jack Dorsey was stepping down. Look at that. It jumped up, and then it's down even lower than before because we're finding out who Agarwal is. So, Twitter, I don't think Twitter's ever been profitable. I could be wrong, but they've just been propped up by investor money for almost its whole existence. So, I think people are kind of like looking at it critically now. What's next on the docket? Walmart's Brett Biggs to step down as CFO. Have you seen that tweet or Facebook post that's been going around? On the first day of the Ghislaine Maxwell trial, the CEO of Twitter stepped down, the CFO of Walmart stepped down, and the CEO of CNBC stepped down. Now, I have not been able to confirm the CNBC part, but this big executive at Walmart, yes, he's stepping down. Now, is that a coincidence? We've seen a lot of top executives, resign this year. It's not just regular employees who are participating in the Great Resignation. A lot of, bigwigs are kind of getting out of the race, getting out of the cluster flunk. Um, Now, do they have something to hide? We mentioned, I think I talked yesterday about Microsoft CEO selling half of his stock. Let's see here. Walmart said on Sunday, and this is on the NewYorkPost.com, Walmart said on Sunday, longtime executive Brett Biggs will step down from his role as chief financial officer of the world's largest retailer next year. Biggs, the finance chief since 2015, helped oversee a period of rapid change at Walmart as the brick-and-mortar retailer launched and expanded a number of initiatives to help fend off competition from Amazon. Walmart made its biggest overseas investment in 2018 with a $16 billion deal to buy a majority stake in Indian online marketplace Flipkart and beefed up its U.S. e-commerce business through the purchase of apparel retailers ModCloth and Bonobos. Monday's announcement came as a surprise to some analysts that viewed Biggs as next in line for Walmart's top job. Brett Biggs was the candidate to ultimately succeed Doug McMillon as CEO, given his long tenure at the company and broad experience across business units and functions outside of finance, said Jason Benowitz, senior portfolio manager. However, we expect McMillon to serve many more years at the helm. Walmart's shares were down 1% in late morning trade. Biggs had held several finance positions, including CFO of the company's international division in U.S. business since joining the company in 2000. Biggs will remain in the role until a successor is named next year, Walmart said, adding he will continue to represent the company as a board member of its fintech startup until January 2023. The startup, a joint venture with investment firm Ribbit Capital, aims to develop financial products for Walmart's employees and customers. Now, I barely go into Walmart anymore. Target's somewhat better, but Walmart is just a wasteland. I used to think Walmart was cool, and it did used to be cool, but I think they just lost mojo in the last 15 or 20 years. It just smells weird. The employees hate their life. The employees barely make a living, and they have to, get support from like welfare or food stamps. You listen to some YouTubers like Fantavision and Camelot 331. It's just miserable working there. It's probably miserable shopping there. They pretty much stayed afloat thanks to e-commerce and online ordering, and so Target at least has a good brand backing up. Like they do have some quality products and kind of a cleaner, more pleasant experience. But on a retail, the only reason you wouldn't shop local is because of branding, which is why I'm so big on web design and digital marketing for small local businesses, because this is what they're up against. Companies that have their, I don't know. Moving on. I told you I'd talk about this case. A big court case. The Jussie Smollett trial. Detective denies claims police rush to judgment. And we're going to skim this article a little bit. Jussie Smollett, 3 years ago, he staged a hate crime where supposedly some Trump supporters threatened to lynch him in the middle of the night, in the middle of winter, while he was going to Subway. Like, who would be out in sub-zero temperatures late at night? It just didn't make sense, and the story fell apart, but not before the media made a hero out of him. The lead investigator of an alleged attack on the actor Jussie Smollett on Tuesday denies claims by defense attorneys that Chicago police rushed to judgment, saying about 24 detectives clocked some 3,000 hours on what they thought was a horrible hate crime before concluding the former Empire star had staged a hoax. Taking the stand as prosecutors began their case, former Chicago police detective Michael Thies said he initially viewed Smollett as a victim of a homophobic and racist attack, and that his team absolutely did not rush to judgment. Thies said investigators spent days after Smollett reported the alleged attack on January 2019, following up leads, collecting videos from surveillance cameras, doorbells, and businesses, poring over phone records, and canvassing the area in sub-zero temperatures. January 2019. Remember that month and year, because we're going to get to it a little later. He also said Smollett refused to provide medical records related to the attack for a cheek swab so investigators could compare it to DNA they had been on a rope Smollett said the attackers put around his neck. Now let's go to a very important paragraph here. Kamala Harris, then a U.S. senator from California, condemned the attack as an attempted modern-day lynching. The actor Viola Davis wrote, "We all have to take this racist and homophobic act of violence very personally." So, how does Kamala Harris fit into this? Well, in this story from BET.com, dated February of 2019, Senators Kamala Harris and Cory Booker received unanimous passage of federal anti-lynching bill. Justice for Victims of Lynching Act is the first piece of legislation to officially make lynching a hate crime. They got this done in February, just, while the Justice Smollett trial case was still being, while Justice Smollett was still being affected by the media. Now, is anti-lynching a good thing or a bad thing? That's up for debate. Of course it's bad. People ought to, have a fair trial for their crimes or supposed crimes. And judging from what we've seen, like acts like the Patriot Act or the Affordable Care Act, they're nothing what their titles say they are. They're probably packed with a lot of pork or riders or things snuck in to do some underhanded crap. But think about this. And X22 Report mentioned this in their recent episode. Governments and legislators, they need a cover story to get their things done. The Jussie Smollett attack or hoax was the impetus needed to get this bill passed in the Senate. What other things has the government done based on action? The Patriot Act was a reaction to 9/11. The Affordable Care Act, a lot of people protested that, and they just kind of rammed it in because they didn't make the case for it. Now coronavirus, the lockdowns, that was based on, that was supposedly a reaction to a horrible pandemic. And same thing as the government's trying to do this with the Omicron variant. Now, are people getting wise to this? I want to think they are. Busybodies, they need a cover story to kind of justify their abuse or usurpation or just control freak nature. So, the more we get wise to their practices, the better off we can, the better we'll be able to be to maintain our freedom. Now, is this bill appropriate? We would have to read it to even pass in the House and get signed by the president. I need to look at that further, but this is just an example, just to get you thinking. Now, another court case. That's big. Federal magistrate approves Kyle Rittenhouse's $110 million defamation suit against LeBron James. How many people were red-pilled by the Kyle Rittenhouse case? How many people actually watched the live streams either on YouTube or on on TV and realized, holy crap, the media lied to us. And Kyle Rittenhouse better be compensated. He better not have to work ever again. You know, there was a article that, oh, he's not going to be accepted to the college of his choice. You know, what college is going to accept him after this brouhaha? Will he ever be able to get, you know, a normal job? Well, who will hire him? You know, the media has to pay for what they did to him. And looks like LeBron James is up first. When Kyle Rittenhouse said he was going to sue LeBron James, the king responded by laughing and saying no judge in Cleveland would side with the little white supremacist. Kyle, in return, apparently asked his lawyers to file in federal court. The first step to a federal civil suit is to have the case approved by a magistrate, which is not easy to do. You have to prove the case is in the interest of all the peoples of the several states, as it says in the Constitution, Article 17. The Rittenhouse suit is satisfied because Kyle wasn't in Cleveland, nor was he a resident of Cleveland or Kenosha when the alleged incident of white supremacy occurred. Remember, being photographed with white supremacists and being a white supremacist are two different things. Or have we all forgotten the Tea Party mantras about Hillary Clinton and Larry Bird? To the magistrate, the Honorable Joe Barron of the 7th Federal Court of Writs and Warrants has stamped the case, greenlighting it to be filed anywhere in the country. According to Kyle's lawyer, they plan to file it in one federal court in each state just to be safe. Checkmate, LeBron. Looks like you have no clue how things actually work. So, I mean, there's video evidence of Kyle Rittenhouse clearly defending himself against a violent mobsters who were chasing him. So, I hope that's, you know, thank God for smartphones and thank God for the internet. I mean, think of what people used to get away with. Think about what the officials used to get away with. Think about how many stolen elections have happened in the past because we didn't have people watching it. Wink, wink. Now, let's move on to day 2 of the Ghislaine Maxwell trial because this is big. You know, everyone on Facebook is saying, hey, we've been watching the Kyle Rittenhouse trial. Now we have to pay attention to the Ghislaine Maxwell trial because that's so huge. And it's going to be harder because it's in federal court and they don't allow cameras in federal court. So we have to rely on people who are there. And we have to rely on not necessarily the corporate media, but on independent media, like Technofog. We read him yesterday. Day 2. Day 2 has wrapped up in the Ghislaine Maxwell trial. To provide a short background, Day 1 involved the final jury selection, opening statements, and the start of the examination of Jeffrey Epstein pilot Ray Visosky. The opening by the prosecution started with the story of a 14-year-old girl who was groomed and abused by Epstein and Maxwell. The grooming and abuse, the alleged modus operandi of the lovers turned abuser and accomplice, is a key part of the prosecution's case, as it describes what they did to each of the 4 victims who will be heard from at the trial. Maxwell's attorney opened by pointing to the real criminal, Epstein, and suggesting Maxwell was the villainized scapegoat. It was Maxwell's Me Too moment, her cry of victimhood not only against Epstein but the U.S. government, and by extension, her victims. As we predicted, Maxwell's counsel emphasized that some victims had mentioned Maxwell in past interviews and were supposedly in this for a financial gain. Let me read the excerpt here. If you're listening on the podcast, I'll read the highlighted part. The June 2019 indictment against Epstein did not include the allegations of the 4 accusers that are contained in the S2 indictment charging Miss Maxwell. Under the terms of the protocol, the accusers here and their civil lawyers stood to benefit if the prosecution against Miss Maxwell went forward. So Epstein's former pilot, Larry Visosky, provided some notable testimony identifying Bill Clinton, Prince Andrew, Senator John Glenn, Donald Trump, and Kevin Spacey as passengers on Epstein's plane. Visosky described flights around the country to Epstein's properties in New Mexico, in Florida, and New York, and taking Epstein, Maxwell, and one of his assistants, Sarah Kellen, and the notable politicians, celebrities on these flights. Sarah Kellen's name is significant because she allegedly had the same type of role Ghislaine Maxwell had in abusing minor girls. Yet she, for some reason, remains free. Kellen was one of the co-conspirators listed in Epstein's sweetheart non-prosecution agreement with the DOJ and was alleged to have been involved in the alleged sexual abuse on Epstein's airplane by at least one victim, and was likely one of the co-conspirators referenced in Epstein's indictment. This second fog includes a tweet he made some time ago. Recall that the Epstein indictment references 3 female employees who helped him recruit and abuse minors. We suspect this refers to Ghislaine Maxwell, Sarah Kellen, and Nadia Marcinkova. Will Kellen testify? That would be interesting. But I don't think the prosecution would call her as a witness. But would the defense? Imagine the fireworks. So the first victim testifies. Today we also saw the testimony of the first victim referenced in the government's opening statement, who was 14 years old at the time of the abuse. Wasting no time, the government, who is James Comey's daughter, in fact, went into the heart of the criminal case against Maxwell. So here's a quote from the case. USA Attorney Comey. How old are you when you first had sexual contact with Jeffrey Epstein? Jane Doe says 14. The attorney says, who was in the room? Jane Doe says, Ghislaine Maxwell. Attorney says, do you see her here? Jane Doe says, yes, there, in sort of a beige turtleneck. In USA, the attorney says, she has identified the defendant. The victim described coming from a rough background, having a broken home as a teenager, and being groomed by Epstein and Maxwell. Epstein would pay for the victim's clothes and so on, and Maxwell would encourage and participate in the abuse. According to the New York Times, one day when she was still 14, Jane testified. Mr. Epstein told her he could introduce her to talent agents. Then he abruptly ended a conversation about her interests and her future and guided her into a pool house, taking her hand and saying, follow me. Inside the pool house, Jane and Mr. Epstein led her to a couch or futon and took off his pants. He then pulled her on top of him and proceeded to pleasure himself. She said, speaking in a slow, halting voice. After he was done, she added, he went into a bathroom to clean up and then acted like nothing had happened. Getting ahead of the defense line of questioning, the government asked the victim about her payment from the Epstein Victims Compensation Fund. The victim admitted she received about $2.9 million. On cross-examination, Maxwell's attorney obtained an admission from the victim that she didn't report the abuse for approximately 20 years. The questions from Maxwell's lawyers continued from there, trying to poke holes in issues ancillary to the abuse, such as the victim's application to a camp. The victim's testimony stopped at the court's daily deadline of 5:00 p.m. Cross-examination of the victim will continue tomorrow morning to be followed by a redirect. That might take all day. So, yeah, the old saw, oh, why didn't you report the abuse until so many years later? Well, when it comes to abuse, a lot of times you don't even realize it happened until you get out of the situation and you see a different way of living. Narcissists, abusers, psychopaths, they have dark spiritual powers and abilities to make you think that what's happening to you is either normal or is justified. If you follow me on Facebook, I share a lot of posts about narcissistic abuse, because I do feel like there's a common thread between abuse in relationships and abuse and corruption in government and corporations. There's some sick people who seem to rise to the top and gain power over us. And this is just another example. I kind of hope we see the common threads along all this. What makes it hard is, like I said in the last episode, you have false accusations like Amber Heard. You have apparently false accusations like what happened to Brett Kavanaugh. They're obviously political, and you wonder, okay, who can you trust? It's so hard, and that's why sexual abuse cases are so thorny. But we do need to let cooler heads prevail. Now, Technofog is doing a great job, reporting the case. And another another website that I want you to be aware of, and I shared this on Facebook, InnerCityPress.com. They report stories from the Southern District of New York's federal courthouse, the famed Southern District, where Rudy Giuliani used to be a federal prosecutor. They've got a lot of cases here, including the Maxwell trial. So it's good to follow them. Inner City Press, look them up and bookmark them, and they're worth checking out. Now, some good news in the whole media corruption saga. CNN suspends Chris Cuomo indefinitely. Chris Cuomo, brother of former New York Governor Andrew Cuomo, who's just an absolute flake on CNN, and probably has been accused of helping Andrew cover up his dalliances as governor. CNN suspended Chris Cuomo indefinitely on Tuesday, one day after the New York State Attorney General's office released transcripts showing the extent of his involvement in assisting his brother, then Governor Andrew Cuomo, as he faced multiple allegations of sexual assault. Anderson Cooper will fill in for Cuomo on Tuesday night, CNN said. Mediaite obtained CNN's full statement on the matter. The New York Attorney General's office released transcripts and exhibits Monday that shed new light on Chris Cuomo's involvement in his brother's defense. The documents, which we were not privy to before their public release, raised serious questions. When Chris admitted to us he'd offered advice to his brother's staff, he broke our rules, and we acknowledged that publicly. But we also appreciated the unique position he was in and understood his need to put his family first and jobs second. However, these documents point to a greater level of involvement in his brother's efforts than we previously knew. As a result, we have suspended Chris indefinitely pending further evaluation. Well, what choice do they have? I mean, the walls are closing in on the elites here. I mean, thank God for the internet. Thank God for smartphones. Thank God for digital cameras. Thank God for social media. Thank God for the blockchain. Thank God for decentralized, internet platforms where we can protect free speech and not be, controlled by the central authority. So, what does Donald Trump have to say about it? We're still on Mediaite here. Trump celebrates Cuomo suspension. Trump celebrates CNN suspension of Chris Cuomo. Fredo is gone. CNN suspended host Chris Cuomo indefinitely on Tuesday night, and few people are happier about that than the supposedly former President Donald Trump. The move came one day after the New York Attorney General's office released transcripts of correspondence between Cuomo and members of his brother's team, then Governor Andrew Cuomo, Democrat from New York, who was combating sexual misconduct allegations at the time. In a statement, CNN said the documents point to a greater level of involvement in his brother's efforts than we previously knew. As a result, we have suspended Chris indefinitely, pending further evaluation. Trump issued a statement almost immediately after the news broke that Cuomo had been pulled off the air. Great news for television viewers. They have just suspended Chris Cuomo indefinitely. The big question is, was it because of his horrendous ratings, which in all fairness have permeated CNN and MSDNC, or was it because his brother is no longer governor? Probably both. In any event, Fredo is gone. Trump's reference to Fredo is a nod to a viral video of Cuomo confronting a heckler who called him Fredo in 2019. So, Trump is on the move. He never actually conceded the election to Joe Biden. He said he would help transfer to a new system of government. So, what's he up to? Well, one thing he has done that's pretty huge is Digital World Acquisition, which is also part of his also was announced at the same time as his social media site Truth Social. So if we can hang on for a while, there'll be so much opportunity on Truth Social. I'm kind of excited. So let's see what Digital World Acquisition stock price is. Okay, it's down today. How's it been the last month or so since it was announced? Down 3.16% today. Okay, it's sliding a little bit. Let's look at 6 months. It's been mostly holding steady. I mentioned yesterday that retail investors, regular folks, have been flocking to Digital World Acquisition Corp, and they're the ones who are up in the storm Wall Street. So we've probably seen some weak paper hands, sell, but people are hanging on. And I think I will wrap up there. Um, just think, the elites are getting frantic. They're clamping down on speech. They're clamping down on small business. But consider this: they wouldn't be so desperate if they weren't losing. That's I love pointing that out. So just keep a stiff upper lip, gang. Um, I'll let you go. Remember to support the channel and treat yourself to some of my services and merch, and do yourself a favor. So long, and remember, it's okay to defend yourself. It's okay to